Hello, this is Mr. Stern.
And it's Labenthal, and we are here to talk to you guys about the French and Indian War.
It's also known as the 7-Year War because it lasted 7 years.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about where the French and Indian War was fought. The French and Indian War is going to be fought in North America, and it's specifically in this Ohio River Valley. So looking at this map here where this blue arrow is pointing, that is the Ohio River Valley. So right on our turf where we live today.
Took place from 1756 to 1763, and if you do the math, that is 7 years, which is why it's also known as the 7-Year War.
So I want you guys to think back to early colonization. Think about who was settling in the Americas. Go ahead and pause the video and chat.
Or talk to yourself.
And we're back. All right, so thinking about early colonization, who was settling in the Americas? I'm thinking like Columbus and Vespucci came on over on behalf of Italy, and then we've got
Spanish
and Portugal,
French,
the British, and then
one more.
And not forgetting the Native Americans.
Oh, yeah.
Here, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So there's lots of people starting to colonize in North and South America. So just keep that in mind for the background information. So when we talk about the French and Indian War, you might be thinking it's about the French and the Indians fighting each other. It's actually not. What's going to happen is there's going to be the French and the Spanish who are going to team up with most of the Indians against the British. And what they're going to be fighting over is, again, that Ohio River Valley area. So the French, the Spanish, and most of the Indians are going to be in alliance. And then they are going to fight against the British. And a small smidgen of Native Americans are going to join the British team as well.
So it's like the purple team versus what kind of color would you call that? Like a
nice teal.
Yeah, teal. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, baby blue.
Yep. So before this war starts in 1753, the French have about 80,000 people, which is nothing compared to the British. The British have over 1 million people. That's a lot of people.
So I want you guys to think about what are some reasons you'd be willing to go to war. Take a moment, pause the video.
And we're back, and Miss Labenthal and I have talked about this a little bit, and go ahead.
There's a lot of different reasons people might go to war. We were talking about the possibilities of lack of rights and wanting more freedoms, feeling like you're not safe in an area, wanting to defend your resources,
get resources.
Yeah, so wanting to be able to have natural resources or access to something, maybe like a waterway. And then one of the biggest things we're going to see happen in North America and South America is there's going to be a huge and many, many wars fought over land. So the French and Indian War
all about land
is going to be specifically fought over this Ohio River Valley, as we mentioned before. So specifically, the French and Indian War is fought over this access and control of the Ohio River Valley. And then looking closer at this map, you can kind of see what areas it is today. So if you look, it starts up here at like Pittsburgh.
We'll hear that again, I think, somehow.
Yes, Pittsburgh, and it travels all the way down through Ohio and Kentucky. So let's talk a little bit more about this French and Indian War.
So before the war starts, the French are actually in the Ohio River Valley. That's where they are. And we're talking about the present-day states of Indiana, Kentucky, West Virginia, and Ohio. They're not states yet. Remember, we are not the United States of America just yet. So these states, present-day states, is where we're speaking of.
And just so you know, in present day, Indiana, Kentucky, West Virginia, and Ohio, that's where that 80,000 French are going to be residing. So this war is going to be fought over who actually gets to stay there. So the Native Americans are there first, then the French start to colonize, and then the British decide, hey, you know what? We might want that land for ourselves. So let's take a moment, and we want you guys to talk about,
if you were a British colonist, how would you feel about the French controlling the Ohio River Valley? How might you feel about that? Take a minute, pause, and we'll come back in a second.
And we're back. So, if you were a British colonist and you were traveling westward looking to expand your empire and ran into 80,000 French people there, I might be thinking, wow, we might have some competition.
Yeah. We want to go out west, but these French, they're standing in our way.
So what's going to happen is the British are going to be willing to fight for this land, and the French, they're there. The Native Americans have been there for generations prior, so they're going to all be willing to fight over this land. So this war is going to determine
which nation would control the northern and eastern parts of North America.
So the winner of this war is going to be able to claim the Ohio River Valley, and therefore is going to control northern and eastern parts of North America.
It's a game changer for sure.
For sure.
So, what does it take to win a war? Stop and think about this. Pause the video and we'll come back in a second. And we're back. Ms. Lobenthal and I have talked about this question. Go ahead, Ms. Lobenthal. What do you think?
So if I was fighting in a war against someone, I think it's important to have a team of people fighting with me, right?
So alliances.
Alliances, good. And then probably soldiers that are trained.
Oh, yeah.
Technology like weapons. But the biggest thing I'm thinking about is in order to pay those soldiers, buy those weapons, I've got to have some money to back it up.
Lots of money.
So what's going to happen is there's going to be some financing needed for the British to win this war. So let's kind of talk about that finance plan. So there's this guy named William Pitt, and William Pitt, he is going to take charge in leading the British. So William Pitt, his job is to help the British win the Ohio River Valley. So William Pitt, he turns to the king and he asks the king to support and finance this war. So Pitt borrows tons of money from Great Britain to finance the war.
Tons.
So Pitt's going to ask the king, hey, do you think you can help pay for this war? If we win this war, we'll get claims to the Ohio River Valley. We'll be able to move out west. The king goes, no problem. We'll support you. However, you have to pay us back.
So after 7 long years, the British win. Obviously, they had a lot more people, and they also got some money from the king. So they win, but they're going to be deep in debt. But before we talk about that, let's talk about what happens about the land.
So the effect of this war, after the British go ahead and defeat the Spanish, the Native Americans, and the French, the land from the losers has to go to the winners. So more specifically, France has to give the British claims to the Ohio River Valley. So the French have to get out of that land, and the Native Americans have to leave as well and give them claims to the Ohio River Valley. Now, because Spain decided to jump in as well, they have to give the British what we now call as Florida. So that gives the British control of the 13 colonies and then westward towards the Ohio River Valley and what we now know as Florida.
So the French defeat expanded Britain's territory, but the British, as you know, spent a ton of money on the war, and they owe a lot of money to the king. So they've got $12 billion in debt, if you look at it in today's standards.
I don't know about you, but if somebody owed me $12 billion, I'd be wanting them to pay me back.
That's a lot of money. Lots of cash. A lot of money. That's big IOU.
That's not like you bought someone's Chipotle and you want your $8 back. $12 billion. The king is going to want this money back. So what the king does is he comes up with a plan to get his money back.
So how might the British pay off this debt? Think about that. Pause and then come back to us in a second.
And we're back.
So how might the British pay off this debt? Not a butter braid sale.
Absolutely not. What they're going to do is they are going to
tax these people.
Yes, these colonists, guess what's going up? Their taxes. They're going to be looking to put more money into that British piggy bank. They're going to be pulling that change out of the colonists' pockets to go ahead and pay back those billions and billions of dollars that the colonists now owe the king.
And if you were a colonist, how do you think this is going to make you feel?
These colonists are going to be upset because these colonists were fighting on behalf of the king. They are going to say, hey, king, you gave us the charter to do this.
So before we go, real quick, where is it?
Oh no, our screencast is frozen. We have a fun fact for you. I don't know why it's not letting us get to our next slide, but I want you guys to talk for a second and think about where we maybe get the name Pittsburgh from.
Where does it come from?
You guessed it. It is William Pitt.
William Pitt.
Bye, guys.
See ya.
Did it stop?